Ron DeSantis, I think, made a critical error in this race. And by cozying up to a number of these big corporate globalist donors and trying to be all things to all people, that's why you see DeSantis being split apart. He's losing donors. He's losing conservative activists. President Trump, meanwhile, continues to get stronger.
About 24 hours ago, that was Jason Miller, the senior advisor to Donald Trump, on this very show yesterday. Today, the Trump campaign did not slow down its attacks on DeSantis either. In a memo, the campaign targets the Super PAC that is backing DeSantis. It says the following at one point, quote, "In total, Never Back Down," that's the Super PAC, "has spent more than $7.2 million in TV ads over the last 3 weeks." It ends by saying, "So, stated directly, what you are witnessing is a fleecing on an epic scale, tens of millions of dollars spent while poll numbers drop." All right, back to the panel. Kristen, the COO of the Never Back Down Super PAC. See how we did that. The Trump campaign basically says you lit $7 million on fire.
Well,
what would you say?
I think we should also back up. The Trump campaign also said that we should cozy up to woke corporations. So if, you know, I know Donald Trump.
Well, he was saying that.
No,
Ron
no,
DeSantis
no.
was.
That's how. But he said that, you know, he's hitting him on Disney. So the Trump campaign was coming out saying we should side with corporations. Now, I know that Donald Trump ran a campaign on wanting to drain the swamp in 2016, and you know, he didn't really do that and kind of became part of it. But for him to side now with the corporations and side with Disney over the people of Florida and the people of the United States is a little bit far, even for the former president. But looking at what we're doing at Never Back Down, what we see is that Ron DeSantis is one of the most popular, well-liked Republican leaders in the country right now. And what people know about him are Florida, his record there. They know his record on COVID. And they know that he has taken the fights and won and made Florida better for it. Also that he's a winner. He hasn't lost an election, unlike the former president. And so what we see is that people know that, but they actually don't know his personal story yet. And so what we're doing at Never Back Down is making sure this is a movement that formed by thousands of people across the country who want Ron DeSantis to run. He's not a candidate yet.
Yeah, he hasn't officially run.
And so what we are doing is bringing these grassroots folks together and making sure that we tell that story about the Ron DeSantis story, his blue-collar roots, his military record. You know, he showed up at Yale in jean shorts and flip-flops. People don't know this type of story behind Ron DeSantis. They know his achievements. They don't know the personal story. And when they find out more, they actually leave Donald Trump and come and join our team. And so, Jason Miller, that sounds like they might just be upset because they aren't fundraising at the same, you know, amount that they had before, but we're doing just fine.
So when Ron DeSantis eventually comes out, as it's believed to be, to tell his story, the poll numbers are going to have to pick up, because when you look at it right now, the Real Clear Politics polling average, he trails Donald Trump by 29 points. The last 6 polls have been between 16 and 26, an average of 21, so it's actually trending down. How do those numbers pick up? I mean, I know he's not an official candidate and he'll be able to talk about it, but what's the strategy to get those numbers higher?
Sure. Well, you hit it right on the head there. We're talking about someone who is not a candidate yet. We are comparing apples and oranges. So you have a former president, basically an incumbent, who is terrified by a potential challenger, someone that's not even in the race yet, and that's Ron DeSantis. Why? Because Ron DeSantis is the only one that can beat Donald Trump. There's a reason why Donald Trump is not out there talking about Nikki Haley or Tim Scott or Mike Pence or anyone else. He's talking about Ron DeSantis because he knows Ron DeSantis can beat him. And so we can talk about national polls in an aggregate there. What you really need to look at are the first 4 states. Right. So you look at Iowa, look at New Hampshire, look at South Carolina, look at Nevada. I mean, just today we had the majority leader in the New Hampshire House endorse Ron DeSantis, who's not even a candidate yet, can't even ask for an endorsement, come out in support. And I think if I'll even concede to the point that we look at the national polls, go back and look at the Real Clear Politics average in 2015 at this time.
It was Christie. It was
Jeb Bush. It was Jeb Bush was going to be the nominee. So if Donald Trump, Jason Miller, and his entire team want to say that he's the Jeb Bush in 2024, I'm fine with that.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Sure.
Yeah, so on that, I mean, Republicans I've talked to who really like Ron DeSantis, one of the concerns they're voicing is, okay, he's talking so much about Bob Iger and Disney. When is he going to go after Donald Trump and fight back? And I know he's not officially a candidate yet, but when can we expect that?
Well, like you said, he's not an official candidate yet. He is doing the best job as the governor of Florida right now. And part of that is standing up for Florida against Disney, which had, special privileges that people want to, say, what is this fight over? But this is not a new fight. This is something that Governor Ron DeSantis started, and frankly, the people of Florida wanted him to do it. Look at how he won. I mean, the Disney fight didn't just start. It started well before his reelection in November, and he won by double digits.
You know, what's really interesting is there are two people in this presidential race, even early on, that don't want to see DeSantis around. That's Biden and that's Trump. That's great irony right there.
Yeah.
And the reality is that the reason Trump is attacking DeSantis is because he's at 26 and a non-candidate, and the other candidates are at 1, 2, 3, 4%. Right. I say that as a Democrat, if you will, because when he runs against Biden in some of these early states and some of these moderate states, if you will, he runs well against Biden. And so as a result, I don't think the story is over for DeSantis. I think it's just beginning. That's not an endorsement either.
I'm just saying, the Democrats
Just a conceptual conversation.
He does want to be the next commander-in-chief. And
Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.